Hey guys, what's happening? Thanks for tuning in, coming back, and watching and hanging out. I appreciate it. Hope your day's going well. I'm in Luminar 4 and I am playing with photos from Iceland, and man, do I love Iceland. It was so amazing. It was just incredible. The photo I'm working on today is from a sunrise that we shot on Diamond Beach. And so this is a beach where you get these big chunks of ice that come out of this lagoon, and I guess they like basically float down a river. They end up on this beach, and then they get scattered about, and they look like diamonds. We showed up before sunrise, started shooting away, and sunrise was literally amazing. Wow, like mind-blowing, beautiful. And I got a lot of photos, but I got this photo in particular. Here we go. As you can see with the EXIF data over here, I was shooting with my wide-angle lens, 1.6 seconds. All I was trying to do is just drag the shutter a little bit so I could get some of that water. So basically the water comes in as it starts to recede, click the shutter and drag it for a second and a half, I was kind of varying 1 to 2 seconds, f8, different settings, but basically it just takes that water, and so you get that water escaping, if you will, or dragging back down the beach. But that was my photo. It was kind of dark. This was before sunrise, as you can see, and I liked it. This isn't my favorite shot. In fact, my best shot, I'll probably do a different video about, because I've got, I think, a really beautiful photo from here, a couple that I'm really proud of. But I thought this one was great because Luminar 4 really saved this photo for me. It started out like this, as I said, and I turned it into that, which is really more so what it looked like. And I feel like I was able to get a better overall look to the photo. So let me show you one more time. There's before and there's after, and the slider, if you want to take a look at that. That's what we're going to go over today. Let me reset these filters and we'll hit it. Okay, here we are in the light tool, and as you probably know, on the base layer you can't mask in the light tool or anything like that. I also can't turn it on and off. So here's the before light tool and after, and I started with light. Obviously the photo is really dark. One more time, really dark, really blue. Two things that I look at and see this photo, dark and blue, and I'm like, this is not going to work. Truthfully, I passed over this photo several times in my library just thinking, it sucks. And, admittedly, it's an okay photo. It's not an amazing photo. I like the photo, but more so, I'm really interested in what I did here to help bring this photo back and make it useful, basically. So now I've got a final photo that I'm happy to share and say, look what I did, as opposed to keeping it in the virtual, collecting virtual dust, if you will, on my hard drive. So tiny bit of temperature and tint change, right? I had to get rid of some of that blue. Bumped exposure, I think that's really obvious. Added some highlights, increased the highlights. Again, I'm trying to brighten some of the photo, and bumped up shadows and bumped up whites a whole lot. So just those moves took me from there to there. And honestly, at this point, after hitting it with light, I was like, I think I have something here. I think I can make this photo work, because once you get it to a decent exposure level, even if the colors are off and things like that, Luminar gives you so much power, you can easily go in and fix those things. So that's what I was focused on doing. I next went to AI Enhance, and that AI accent, it does a great job. However, in situations like this, I think you have to be careful, because it has a tendency to amp up colors. And let me turn that off again. The primary color is still pretty blue, right? We've got some nice light coming in on that left-hand side and reflecting in the wet sand on the beach, but still pretty blue photo. So AI Enhance does a great job of brightening the photo. It does add contrast, but it also pops color a little bit. You can see I'm getting a little bit more blue in there. So even though I went pretty heavy, 65, I think it helped me from a light standpoint. One more time, before and after that. But I wanted to stop. I didn't want to go any further because I wanted to make sure that I control that color. And so that leads me into the color filter, and let me turn that on. And you can see I didn't do anything with saturation or vibrance up here on the top. All I did is I went down here to blue. I changed the hue slightly. I decreased saturation, which is fairly important, I think, in this case. And I bumped up the luminance. The luminance is the light value of that blue color. And basically what I want to do is brighten it, because I felt like it was still too dark. However, I didn't want to do that on the whole photo. I like the blue in the sky. So basically above the horizon, I'm cool with the blue, totally fine. It was the bluish water that I wanted to sort of get control over. So what I did is I went in and created a gradient mask. I'm going to click on brush mask simply because that allows me to show you the gradient. So you can see I dragged a gradient and put it on the bottom of the photo. Anything in red is getting the effect here of this color filter. Anything not in red does not get it. So basically, this negative blue color stuff that I did right here is being applied in that red zone, which is from the horizon line and down. So let me close that and say one more time, there's before, foreground, quite a bit bluer, a little darker, and after, foreground less blue and brighter. That's what color did for me. So you may not think of the color filters as being something you would use to increase or decrease the light levels in a photo, but it works really well if you have a dominant color like blue and you want to brighten it. Try that out. Okay, so that's it for color. Next up, I went to Landscape Enhancer, and what I wanted to do is pop some of that warm light over there that's coming in from the sunrise. And so I hit it with golden hour at 49. So, a fairly decent amount of golden hour, but if you look at the before, there it is, a little softer, and after, there it is. It's a little bit richer, but even at 49, it's not a ton, and that's because there's not a ton of orangey yellow in the scene. I just wanted to see how it would work. I think it helped here, so I went ahead and went for it. Okay, next I popped over to the Professional tab, which is this one on the bottom that says Pro, of course, and I used Adjustable Gradient, one of my favorite filters. There's a video about it if you would like to check that out. Here we go, Adjustable Gradient, turn that on. You can see it had a fairly significant impact on the photo. There you go. I'm going to show you the orientation. I set it with the horizon. I left the gradient zone above and below the center line basically the same, but I wanted to level that on the horizon so that what I call top is above the horizon line and what I call bottom is below the horizon line. So in the top, which is the horizon and above, I bumped up the exposure 5, not a big deal, but I added a fair amount of warmth and vibrance. And again, just trying to pop those colors. It actually was a really vibrant sunrise and beautiful. And then I went into the bottom, and here's where I really brightened up the photo quite a bit. Exposure up by 26, highlights up by 45. So again, let me turn that off. There you go, a little bit darker, and the whites are a little bit more muted and frankly kind of blue. And on, there we go, a little bit less blue and a little bit brighter. I also added some warmth and vibrance. The thing here with vibrance is you got to be careful. It's going to bump up some of those colors. And because there's a lot of blue, you just want to be careful with it. So I wasn't totally done with the photo, but I was definitely liking where I was. There's the before, and there's the current state, and a sliding window here if you want to do a compare. At this point, I really knew I was getting somewhere, but of course, I wanted to continue to customize to really get to the final look that I sort of envisioned in my head. So that next step led me to the Color Enhancer filter. I'm going to turn that on, and you can see it'll pop the colors a bit. Brilliance and warmth, I added a little bit of both. I skipped color contrast, and split color warmth, I did a little bit of that as well for each of those sliders. If you're not familiar with Color Enhancer, I've got a video about it I'll link to there. I didn't do anything down here in color balance. As much as I love it, I left that alone, and I felt like I was doing pretty well here in my colors, but there was one more step, and that was split toning. So what I wanted to do is just kind of warm up the photo a little bit more. So there you go, I've turned that on, and you can see I've muted some of those blues a little bit more, and the way I did that is in the highlights, I took this kind of warmer hue and went saturation of about 19. Also did the same thing in the shadows, a little bit different hue, and this was just experimentation. There's no, do this to get that kind of thing. Well, unless you're kind of doing a sepia look, in which case they're fairly specific things you do. But each photo is different, and in this case, I wanted to warm up the highlights and the shadows. And again, that's going back to the original being really blue, and I'm trying to contain and control that blue and basically manage that color. So I was able to use a specific hue for the shadows and highlights separately and then bump up the saturation. Again, just experimentation until I got what I wanted. But there I was before split toning, still fairly blue in the foreground, and after split toning, the blue's kind of going away. And at this point, I thought I was kind of done with the photo, so I stopped editing. But then after sitting on it for a little while, I just thought, I'm not done. I want to do more. So I went and got another adjustment layer. Start with the light tool, which of course is on sort of by default. But the light tool, I made some additional adjustments here. Now you can see how the photos changed already. I left temperature and tint alone. I was kind of done with that. I did add contrast, and I bumped up the highlights a little bit. And this is basically brightening those brighter parts, because what I'm trying to do is create more pop in that white, which is sort of that sea foam, those waves running away from me or escaping. I'm trying to get them to really pop and be more white. So I also went down to whites and hit those with a 12. So not a major thing, but certainly helped. Next up, I went to AI structure, and that was basically, I wanted to soften up the photo a bit. So let me turn that on. I took the amount down, -59 and a boost of 51. So it's a pretty significant amount. However, I did some masking here. You can see how it softened the photo. Let me turn that off again one more time. There it is. It's not, what's the word? It's not rough or gritty, but it's not smooth enough for me. Part of that is it's not an excellent photo. Like the waves and the sort of the motion that I captured are not ideal. So I wanted to soften them up a little bit. So I used negative structure, which I love to do. And then what I did is I painted that in. Let me show you. Actually, what I did is I erased it from the surf. I felt like the surf had enough motion because remember, this was like a second and a half. So I had enough motion there. I didn't need to smooth that out. And I don't want to smooth out the details that are in that like little diamond, right? That iceberg here on Diamond Beach. I like that the way it was, but I wanted to soften the rest of the photo and give it a little bit dreamier effect or feel. And that's where AI structure came in handy for me. Okay, and then I went back to color, and this was a very minor touch. I just went into vibrance, gave it a 9. So, I mean, you probably can't even tell. I'm not even sure I can tell, to be honest. But I did it, and I wanted to share that here as part of the workflow. Basically, what I was trying to do, vibrance will help you bump some of the non-dominant colors. So I was trying to get a little bit more of that warmth to be present in the photo. Okay, now that I've softened the photo and done that, I went to Detail Enhancer, and here I basically popped the small and medium details, and then I painted them into, not advanced settings, let me show Edit Mask, Brush, and what I did is I painted them in here to this little iceberg rock, right? So I might actually do a little bit more painting. There you go, cover a little bit more of that, but basically I'm just trying to pop the details in that little chunk of ice because that's the detailed part of the photo. That's kind of where I want the eye to be sort of focused. Obviously, it's in the center of the composition, about a third of the way through the frame. And, you know, I'm wanting your eye to kind of go like that and then follow the water and then kind of see the light. I don't know if it really works that way, but kind of my thinking, but I wanted to pop the detail a little bit to give it some oomph. Now, one more time, I was over here to Landscape Enhancer, and this was Golden Hour, and this was a global impact. I just hit the whole thing with a 16, and in fact, I might even give it a little bit more. I don't know. I like my colors, so sometimes I'll make a photo and be happy with it and start the video and then start futzing around with it just because I like to, and I always kind of question my edits. I don't know about you, but I'm fairly indecisive with a lot of my edits, so I'm always kind of going back and saying, well, I could do this a little different or that a little different. Anyway, experiment, have fun. That's what we should be doing. But that was Landscape Enhancer, helped me get a little bit better look to that photo. And at this point, I was basically done with the photo, but just now sitting here recording this video, I decided to go over here to the Portrait tab and get Orton because Orton does a beautiful job, I think, of creating that smooth and kind of ethereal look. And to me, this is a kind of location that sort of eats that up. So I'm going to give it a little bit of Orton. So I don't know, I'm just kind of winging it here. But as you can see, it does create a little bit more contrast. And the contrast is the difference between the bright and the dark spots. So I have a black sand beach and I have white sea foam waves. Perfect contrast. And I feel like the Orton effect here kind of amps that up. So there's the before Orton and here's after Orton. Adds a little bit to that white by creating a little bit more contrast, smooths out the photo a little bit, and creates more of that sense of motion. And that's really my edit, my friends. Let me show you one more time. I started with this, dark and blue. I mean, that's the two things that come to mind is, well, and the third one is, hey, Jim, why'd you take that photo? But that's where I am now, and the slider, kind of the before and after. I mean, the sky looks totally different. Now, you might look here at these clouds in the center and say, well, you kind of blew those out. But truthfully, I don't really care. Like, they don't really do anything for me. And frankly, I'm happy with the result. I like having that kind of orange slice, for lack of a better word, across the center. But that is my workflow for this photo, my friends. And that's how Luminar saved the photo for me. It was just a combination of experimentation, various tools, lots of masking, and frankly, just having fun. And that's how it works in Luminar. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate that. Give me a thumbs up if you haven't yet. How about a comment? Let me know what you think. Share the video and hit that subscribe button if you have not yet subscribed to my channel. More stuff coming soon from Iceland and other things. Thanks for watching, my friends. I appreciate it. Have a great day. I'll see you soon, and adios.